The next time you text me, I'm blocking you. That's what my 17-year-old grandson said to me. My boy. The child I potty trained, sat up with through fevers, drove to baseball practice in a car that barely had heat. He was standing in my driveway with a duffel bag over his shoulder, his mother's car idling at the curb. He wouldn't quite look at me. His sister sat in the front seat, staring straight ahead. You make everything stressful, Grandma, he went on, his voice flat. Mom says it's not healthy for us to be around you anymore. We need a break. For a long time. Behind him, my daughter leaned across the seat and clicked the door lock like she was afraid I might run out and grab him. I'm 71. I don't run anywhere. I just stood there on my own front porch, holding a casserole dish I'd made for their new place, listening to my grandchildren, my babies, tell me they were done. And all I could think was, how did I raise these children and still end up a stranger on the sidewalk? My name is Ruth. I'm a retired receptionist, a widow, and once upon a time, I was what they call a kinship caregiver. That's a fancy phrase for grandma who becomes mom again when her own kids fall apart. I had one daughter, Melissa. Bright girl. Stubborn as a mule, just like her dad. We weren't perfect, but we were close. She'd curl up on the couch with me as a teenager and tell me everything. Boys, grades, her dreams of being a photographer. I thought I'd done okay as a mother. We didn't have much money. My husband, Jack, worked at the mill and I answered phones at a doctor's office, but we kept the lights on and the fridge full. We ate dinner together most nights. We went to church on Sundays, not because we were saints, but because it was the only time of the week we sat still. Then Jack died. Heart attack. 1 minute he was grumbling about the game. The next he was on the living room floor. Melissa was 19. Grief does strange things to people. Melissa drifted. Fell in with a boyfriend who always had a business opportunity and never seemed to have a job. They drank. They smoked things that weren't cigarettes. I saw the signs and I pushed, harder than she wanted. You're too controlling, she'd snap. It's my life, Mom. Yes, I'd say, but it's my couch you're sleeping on and my car you're borrowing and my heart you're breaking. We fought. She moved out. Came back. Moved out again. When she showed up at my door at 22, eyes red, hands shaking, with a positive pregnancy test in her hand, I did what mothers do. I sighed. I hugged her. I made a list. We can figure this out. I went to doctor appointments with her. I threw her a little baby shower in the church basement with a banner that said, "Welcome baby," and a sheet cake with too much frosting. I held her hand in the delivery room while the baby's father paced the hallway, refusing to put out his cigarette. When they put my granddaughter, Lily, in my arms for the first time, something inside me lit up again. I'd missed having a baby to fuss over. The tiny socks. The soft hair. The weight of a little body asleep on your chest. She smells like hope, I whispered. For a while, Melissa did okay. She loved that baby. I never doubted that. But loving and being able to show up are not the same thing. Night feedings turned into missed feedings when Melissa started using again. Just to take the edge off, she said. Then, just for weekends. Then the weekends didn't end. I'd come home from work at 6 to find the baby still in a soaked diaper, bottle propped in the crook of a blanket while Melissa slept it off on the couch. Mom, you're overreacting, she'd mumble. She's fine. That's not fine, I'd say, holding my granddaughter close, feeling her little body stiff with hunger. This is how babies die, Melissa. We went around and around. Rehab. Promises. Relapses. The baby's father disappeared completely. When Lily was almost 2, Child Protective Services showed up. A neighbor had called when they'd heard shouting and a crash. The caseworker was younger than my daughter. She asked a lot of questions. Took a lot of notes. You're the grandmother, she said to me. Are you willing to take temporary custody while your daughter completes treatment? I looked at Lily, clinging to my pant leg. Yes, I said. Whatever you need. Just Don't put her with strangers. The paperwork said, temporary. It always does. By the time my grandson, Noah, was born 2 years later, different father, same chaos, the temporary had become a way of life. The court stamped my guardianship order. Melissa's name stayed on the birth certificates, but I was the one the schools called, the one who signed permission slips, the one who knew which kid liked crusts cut off and which one would only eat apples if you peeled them. We developed our little routines. Mornings were cereal and cartoons while I packed lunches. After school was homework at the kitchen table. Bedtime was a book and a song I made up myself, some nonsense about the moon and how it kept watch. Sometimes at night, when they were finally asleep and my back ached from bending over bathtubs, I'd sit on the edge of my bed and think, I am too old for this. I was in my late 50s, then 60s, at school concerts surrounded by parents young enough to be my children. I'd stand in line at parent-teacher conferences and people would say, "Oh, are you here for your great-grandchild?" And I'd smile and say, "Nope. Just grandma doing round 2. Melissa drifted in and out of their lives like weather. Sometimes she'd show up high as a kite, arms full of dollar store toys to make up for 3 months of silence. Sometimes she'd be sober for a stretch, come to church with us, sit at the table coloring with them like we were any other family. Every time she got it together a bit, I'd let myself hope. Maybe this time. But addiction has a long reach. And my daughter had a deep well of shame inside her. It was easier, I think, to stay away than to sit across from the children who called someone else Mom half the time. I tried to walk a tightrope. I never told the kids, "Your mother is worthless." I said, "She's sick. She's working on getting better." I saved my anger for long drives by myself, hands gripping the wheel, talking to God like he was a very patient social worker. As they grew older, the story got more complicated. Lily started asking, "Why didn't Mom come to my recital?" Noah would say, "Why does Mom get to live wherever she wants and you have to stay home with us?" I'd say things like, "Being a mom means staying, sweetheart. Staying when it's boring and hard. Your mom is still learning that." I saw, even then, how my answers hurt and helped at the same time. By the time Lily hit 14, she discovered 2 dangerous tools: social media and her mother's version of events. Melissa had gotten into recovery again. This time, she stayed. She got a job at a coffee shop, then an office. She moved in with a man who actually worked a normal job and paid his bills. She started posting photos, herself at meetings with a keychain, herself holding up a cake that said, 1 year sober. I was proud of her. I really was. But I also felt uneasy. It's hard to explain to people who haven't spent a decade getting kids to school, to doctors, to therapy, through night terrors and science fairs and dental visits, how it feels when someone who is a ghost suddenly shows up and wants to rewrite the program. At first, it was small. "Can I take them to the movies?" she'd ask. "Just me. You don't have to come. You never let me be a mom." It stung, but of course I let her. Supervised at first, then more relaxed. I would stand at the window, watching them climb into her car, my stomach a fist of hope and fear. The kids came back glowing. "Mom is so fun," Noah would say. "She lets us get candy before dinner." "Mom says you're too strict," Lily would add, half apologetic, half thrilling in the shared secret. I bit my tongue until it almost bled. I wasn't perfect in all this. I can admit that now. I had wrapped my whole identity around those 2 kids. They were why I got up in the morning. They were why I took my blood pressure pills, why I still worked part-time at the office into my late 60s. So when Melissa started talking about transitioning them back to her care, I panicked. In the lawyer's office, she said, "You've had your turn, Mom. They need their real mother now." "I've been their real mother for 10 years, I shot back. "Where do you think I've been?" "On vacation." The lawyer cleared his throat, eyes on the papers. "We went to mediation. We sat with a woman who spoke in soft tones about everyone's needs, while my daughter accused me of smothering her kids, of bad-mouthing her, of turning them against her. I never did that," I said, voice shaking. I told them you were sick. You told them I was a junkie, she yelled. I never used that word, I whispered, but in my heart I knew I'd thought it 1,000 times. The kids were brought in for their say, because at their ages, 14 and 12, the court wanted to hear them. They were polite. They were careful. Lily twisted her bracelet until her fingers were red. I want to live with Mom, she said finally. But I still want to see Grandma. A lot. Noah nodded. Yeah. We want both. The mediator smiled like we'd solved something. That's good, she said. We can work with that. In the hallway afterward, I hugged them. No matter what happens, I told them, my house is always your house. Always. They hugged me back. Noah's chin had started to scratch my cheek. I know, he said. Don't worry, Grandma. But you don't reach 70 without learning that, don't worry, usually means, I have no idea what's coming either. The plan, on paper, was shared custody. Weekdays with Melissa during the school year, weekends and some holidays with me, summers split. In practice, it started to tilt. Mom, it's just hard to drive them across town every weekend, Melissa would text. They're tired. Can we skip this one? Grandma, I have a project, Lily would say on the phone. Mom says it's just easier if I stay here. Easier. Always easier. They got used to their new school district, their new rooms, the boyfriend's nice house with the big TV and the pool. My little rental with the wobbly porch railing and the hand-me-down couch started to look shabby, I guess. Even to me. I tried to stay involved. I went to games, to band concerts, sometimes sitting alone because Melissa forgot to save me a seat. I'd wave, they'd wave back, but it felt like I was on the wrong side of a glass wall. The breaking point for me came on Lily's 16th birthday. I'd saved up for months to buy her a camera. Not a fancy one, but a good, solid starter DSLR. I thought, she always wanted to be a photographer. Maybe this will be a bridge between us. When I got to Melissa's house, balloons were already on the mailbox. Cars lined the street. I walked in with my little wrapped box and a plate of deviled eggs because I'm incapable of going anywhere empty-handed. The house was full of people I barely knew. Melissa's recovery friends. Her boyfriend's family. A woman I'd never met cooed. Oh, you must be Lily's grandma. Isn't Melissa such a great mom? I smiled so hard my face hurt. When it was time for presents, Lily sat in a chair in the living room, everyone circled around. Melissa was right by her side, hand on her shoulder. From Grandma, someone said, passing her my box. She opened it. Her face lit up. A camera, she said. Oh my God, Grandma, thank you. For a moment, it felt like old times. She jumped up and hugged me. I breathed her in, this mix of teenage shampoo and cake frosting. Then Melissa said, a little too loudly, well, you can thank me later for helping Grandma pick it out. She had no idea what to get, did you, Mom? People laughed. I hadn't asked her for help. I'd spent an hour with the young man at the electronics store, asking more questions than he probably gets in a week. It was a small thing, maybe. But it was like she'd reached over and put her hand over mine on a steering wheel I'd been gripping for a decade. After cake, they started taking pictures. Big group shots in the backyard. Family photos, they called them. Okay, moms and dads, someone said. Melissa and her boyfriend stepped in. His parents stepped in. I took a step too. Oh, Melissa said, laughing, not quite looking at me. We're doing immediate family first, Mom. We'll get one with you after. After never came. I stood there, next to the hedge, watching my granddaughter wrap her arms around people who hadn't been there the night she had croup, and I sat in a steamy bathroom for 3 hours, praying she'd keep breathing. I went home early that day. Said I was tired. Blamed my knees. The truth was, my heart hurt more. The visit that ended everything came a year later, the one I told you about at the beginning. The driveway. The duffel bag. The casserole dish cooling in my hands. By then, The excuses for missed weekends had piled up. I'd started calling more than they called me. When they finally came over to talk, I had a bad feeling. My cat even hid under the bed, and she usually adores those kids. Melissa stayed in the car, engine running. Lily stared at her phone. Noah shifted from foot to foot. "Spit it out," I said gently. "I'm old, but I can still hear." He swallowed. "Grandma, we love you," he began. "But Mom says the constant guilt and drama isn't good for us. You're always talking about the past. About what you did. About how much you sacrificed. And it makes us feel bad." I stared at him. "So you don't want to feel bad about the fact that I raised you?" I asked, more sharply than I intended. He flinched. "I just want to move forward," he said. "We're almost adults. We want to be with Mom. Full time. Without conflict." I could see Melissa's reflection in the windshield, staring straight ahead. "And what does Lily think?" I asked. She didn't get out of the car. She just called out through the cracked window, "I just need space, Grandma, okay? Mom says you'll never see us as hers, and I can't keep being in the middle." The words hit like little stones. I looked at my grandson. At the fine stubble on his jaw, the same cowlick he'd had at 2. "If I stop talking about the past," I said quietly, "does that undo it? Do those diapers change themselves? Does the homework help itself? Do the night shifts vanish?" He looked miserable. "That's what I mean," he whispered. "We can't fix it. So, can we just stop?" I realized in that moment that I had a choice. I could grab onto him. I could throw their mistakes in their faces until they left in a cloud of slammed doors and shouted words. Or I could let them go and keep what little dignity I had left. "Okay," I said finally. My voice didn't sound like mine. "If you need space, take it." He stared. I think he expected a fight. "I made you a casserole," I added, holding out the dish. "For your new place. Kids your age never eat enough vegetables." He took it, hands shaking a little. "Thanks," he whispered. They got in the car. They drove away. I stood there until the taillights turned the corner. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I didn't drink and cried like I hadn't cried since Jack died. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just this steady, leaking grief. Who was I if I wasn't Grandma who raises the kids? The next few weeks were empty. I'd walk past the bedrooms where they used to sleep on weekends and stop myself from straightening sheets no one had wrinkled. I'd find myself checking the pantry for snacks they liked, then remember no one was coming. Friends at church would ask, "How are the grandkids?" And I'd say, "Teenagers. Busy, because estranged tastes bitter and invites too many follow UPS." In the quiet, though, another feeling crept in alongside the hurt. Relief. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to be on call. I didn't have to keep my phone on the nightstand, just in case. I didn't have to brace myself for Melissa's drama and the kids' disappointment every time a visit went sideways. I hated that I felt lighter and heartbroken at the same time. One afternoon, my neighbor Maria knocked on my door with a pie. "You look like you've been to a funeral for a month," she said. "What's going on?" She's my age, a grandmother too. The words came tumbling out of me before I could stop them. After I finished, she nodded slowly. "My oldest did something similar," she said. "Different details. Same sting." I joined a support group at the community center. Grandparents raising grandkids, getting cut out, all of it. "You should come." I almost said no. I'm not a group person. I'm a make a list and push through person. But the next Tuesday I went. We sat in a circle in a beige room that smelled like coffee and old carpet. There was a man whose daughter had overdosed, leaving him with a toddler, and then, when she got sober, she sued him for custody and told the court he was undermining her. There was a woman whose son had moved across the country with her grandkids and stopped answering calls. I told my story. I watched heads nod around the circle. One woman said, "They forget. Kids. They forget the diapers and the doctor visits. They only remember who's there when they're old enough to notice. It's not fair. But it's not personal either." That stuck with me. Not personal. Except, of course, it is. But not in the way I'd been holding it. I started to see that my grandchildren weren't villains. They were teenagers being pulled like taffy between a mother clawing back her place and a grandmother scared to death of becoming invisible. I had made mistakes. I had talked too much about what I'd done, partly from pride, partly from fear they'd forget. I had rolled my eyes at Melissa in front of them. I had let my hurt leak out in little sighs and, "Well, when you lived with me," comments. I couldn't change any of that now. What I could change was what I did next. So I wrote them each a letter. Not a 10-page manifesto. Just a couple of pages, handwritten, because I'm old-fashioned like that. I apologized for the times I'd made them feel like they were a debt I was collecting, instead of a joy. I told them some stories they were too young to remember, like the time Lily stuck Cheerios up Noah's nose, or the night we all slept on the living room floor during a storm and made shadow puppets on the ceiling. I told them plainly that their mother's absence was about her illness, not their worth. And that her return was not a rejection of me, even if it felt that way. It was her trying, finally, to be what she should have been all along. I ended with this. You don't owe me constant contact. You don't owe me visits on a schedule. You owe me nothing. I chose you. I would choose you again. My door is open as long as I'm breathing. That's all you need to know. Love, Grandma. I mailed the letters. Then I did the hardest part. I stopped chasing. No more double texting when they didn't reply. No more showing up at events I wasn't clearly invited to. No more checking their social media through mutual friends like some sort of detective. Instead, I filled my time with things that weren't just placeholders. I volunteered 2 afternoons a week at the elementary school, listening to little kids read. I joined a walking group at the mall, a bunch of gray-haired women in sneakers power striding past the pretzel stand. I planted tomatoes on my tiny balcony and cursed at the squirrels. Months went by. Sometimes, the ache flared up. Holidays were the worst. I'd set an extra place at Thanksgiving out of habit, then put the plate back in the cabinet. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed while I was folding laundry. It was a picture. Lily, holding my old camera, standing on a hill somewhere at sunset. Underneath, a message. "Grandma, took this with the camera you got me. Thought you'd like it." My heart thumped. I wrote back, "It's beautiful. Just like you. Tell me about the shot." She replied. Slowly. Stilted. But she replied. A week later, Noah sent me a meme about old people and technology. "You still type with one finger," he teased. "Don't be rude," I wrote. "Sometimes I use two." We're not back to sleepovers and weekends and pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Maybe we never will be. They're busy. They're young. They're still untangling whose story to believe. But the door between us isn't slammed anymore. It's cracked open. Just a sliver. Enough for light to seep through. At 71, I've learned something I wish I didn't have to learn this way. You can pour yourself out for someone and still end up standing alone in your driveway. Being needed and being loved are not the same. I raised my grandchildren while their parents were absent. I wiped their tears and packed their lunches and sat through every awful middle school band concert. Then I got cut out of the glossy, cleaned-up version of their lives when it was time for normal. It hurts. It will probably always hurt. But I also know now that my worth wasn't in how tightly I could hang on. It was in how well I could let go without closing my heart. I don't know if, 10 years from now, they'll sit at my kitchen table again and roll their eyes at my stories. I hope so. What I do know is this. I was there when they needed someone most. I showed up when it counted. And no one, not their mother, not time, not even they themselves, can erase the years we already lived together. They can cut me out of their pictures. They can't cut me out of their beginnings.